Welcome to the Style My Mind podcast. On this show, we decipher the secrets, tips, guidance of fashion and psychology with the world's most inspiring people. Our mission is to unlock the power to become the best version of yourself by turning their wisdom and knowledge into practical advice. I'm welcoming you to a very special two-part episode based on the iconic fashion fundraiser, the 2024 Met Gala. Today, we're going to explore the artistry and history, while in the next episode, we will be diving more deeply into the controversies of this event, especially this year, amidst the current global climate. Joining us today is Sidhant Sudhan, popularly referred to as Sid, a visionary fashion designer and couturier from India. Known for being well-read and cultured, Sid brings a depth of knowledge and perspective that challenges the typical perceptions of fashion designers. His extensive background in economics and self-taught journey in fashion makes his insights truly unique. We are excited to delve into his expertise and discuss the significant themes surrounding the Met Gala. Sid, it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
I feel so honored. Thank you. I think to recognize, I think this is where we should end the podcast and kind
Well, appreciation is where appreciation is deserved. You are doing great work out there.
Thank you. It takes one to know one, a hardworking person.
That's true. So I would like to dive right in and first start with introducing you a little bit further. So where does your passion for fashion come from?
I feel like I've known that I wanted to be in the world of fashion since the age of 14. Like, I remember my dad was so skeptical. He's like, oh my God, he will turn gay. And I'm like, I already am. It was very funny. But then, I was sketching all the time. I grew up with like 5 women who were very, they're very powerful women in all their rights. And they raised me. And it was just such a spectacular experience to see how they moved and how they dressed themselves and how they defined their own identities. It was very inspiring for me because I was struggling to find my own identity, right? So I feel like they helped me find mine, discover myself more.
Oh, that's amazing. As I have mentioned in the beginning that you are a couturier, can you maybe explain to the listeners who are not necessarily as involved in the fashion industry what that is specifically?
So I feel like it's just a more intense version of designing. So for example, something which not necessarily can be worn in daily life or like every day. Like that's the differentiation between ready to wear and couture. So couture is also more labor intensive. It's more, it's got to do more with the craftsmanship, the hands, the technology, the aspects of like integrating and collaborating with different artisans and craftsmen, to bring something very spectacular to life, which not necessarily is very comfortable to wear, as can be seen by the Met Gala.
Yeah, that's always the fun part, right? People think that fashion is only the vacuum of the clothes of what we wear. But for me, as an example, also when I look at your work, which we will refer to later, where people can find you, couture is art, right? We're taking fashion, like clothing that you wear, and the person is the canvas to present the art. So that's also why the Met Gala is such a big deal in the fashion world. Before we do dive into the details of the Met Gala, though, and its outfits, can you explain to the listeners what you are wearing today, and can you tell me why you chose this outfit?
So I'm wearing a brand that I used to work for because this is where I kind of collaborated with them as a senior assistant designer. This is by the Indian brand Sameer Madan. I wanted to wear an Indian brand, which is kind of breaking the rules of presswear in India, which I really respect. And they gave me my first opportunity as a designer to learn, to grow, to make mistakes. And I respect them for that. And I did kind of integrate the pin tuck technique back into like jersey, which we thought would not really sustain, but it sustained and it helped the brand grow. So it's a great collaborative effort that we came together with, and that's Sameer. And then this is my journey, my humble beginning is what I'm wearing today.
Oh, that's nice. So how does it make you feel when you wear your humble beginning?
it makes me feel very grateful. Like I have a lot of gratitude for the experiences, for the opportunities that I have been gifted with and blessed with, because not everybody was ready to take someone on board who has not had prior education in fashion, who does not have any knowledge of pattern making. And not just that, but giving them a sewing machine and like allowing them to like stitch at their own pace and learn and grow and toile and drape. And it was not necessarily the perfect things, like, but I was given the time and the lessons and the idea of being nurtured as a talent is something that takes a lot of I don't know, in today's fast-paced environment, not everybody has has the heart or the time to really give it to another person to help them grow their passion. I feel like that is something you have to be very respectful of. So I respect that a lot from the brand.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful to hear. And also for the people who don't watch the video. So Sid is wearing a beautiful white shirt and has like a black knit sweater over it with the beautiful details that he has described prior. And yeah, he looks very dapper in my opinion.
Thank you.
So, but let's dive back into the Met Gala. So the Met Gala is a fashion fundraiser to pretty much preserve history of art, and especially when it comes to art, the Fashion Institute. So, Sid, what can you tell me about the Met Gala and its origin?
Yes, so I think the Met Gala was started in the 1970s, if I'm not wrong, and it was to honor the achievements in fashion, to kind of preserve history in a way and also raise funds for progressing the industry more, in my opinion. But yeah, like I just feel like it was mostly to do with fundraising and preserving art history of fashion as an art form and then presenting it to the world.
Yeah. And for everyone who's not working in fashion, with my history of having been a fashion designer, and for Sid, probably the same, a lot of designers are very much aspiring to be able to dress one of the celebrities at some point, because it's kind of the peak image that you can project, because you also can be super creative in creating that outfit. So it's super exciting today to have like Sid here with like his fashion expertise, and especially when it comes to craftsmanship. Now I would like to hop into the craftsmanship as spoken to. Could you walk us through the journey, the hypothetical journey of creating a Met Gala outfit? Like, what does it take from concept to the red carpet, just as a general question?
So I feel like if you're talking, I think there are two stories here, because for the first part, there is a lot of, for the first part, I think it does take a village to make the garments. That is what every celebrity keeps talking about, right? Like it's so labor intensive. But I feel like in the past, there used to be like beauty and essence of people trying to find their own personal style through the narrative, through the concept, which is lacking. So people would often go for outfits that were not always available on social media. And now everything is so visible that people just want to take it and evolve. So the first step in today's age is that in the current year and landscape is that people want to reach out to the stylist. The stylist is what gives the theme to the designer. And then the designer actually just expands on their original creation to make something a little more centered around the stylist theme and what they want to showcase, right? And then of course, like I think the biggest and you have to give the most credit to the team of designers, to the craftsmen, to the embroiderers, to the people, the machinists, the pattern makers, who are often not even invited to the Met Gala. Sorry, sidebar. And yeah, so it just takes like hours and hours of, co-creating and collaborating within the team members to bring that outfit to life, and not to forget the people who are doing the alterations and the people who are opening the garments and then bringing it to the Met Gala. Like for people like Balmain, Olivier Rousteing, to be precise, his job was not finished even on the red carpet. He was busy cutting Tyler's dress. It's so interesting.
Especially like considering like how complex it is to set up a garment like that, but also for the designers to be as free as they want to be to interpret whatever they like, the concept that they come up with, because usually like the design, I mean, right, usually the designers come up with a theme or a concept for a new collection, But with the Met Gala, it's slightly different, right? Because they get from Anna Wintour the concept that is needing to be projected, and then they need to then create something out of this given thing. It's almost like you sent the super established designers back into design school, where you got like a topic that you had to work around.
It's like Project Runway for the successful, right?
A bit more elaborate, but sure, they have definitely more time.
But like, if you talk about the past, it's like it was so much more interesting because people actually had not made the connection. So if somebody was wearing a designer, it was interesting for the media to know who they were wearing. And now it's just all become so dramatized and thematic that it's kind of lost its essence, in my opinion. But then you cannot take that credit away from the amount of effort and work that the team is putting into making that garment, because it's just, it's so time consuming. And the garments are huge.
Yeah, that's true too. I mean, they can sometimes not even sit in the taxi or in the limousine, so they have to like stand up and hire like a bus or so because they cannot move or whatever.
We've all seen that in Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Yeah, so that's very, very interesting. If we are like, let's circle back to the specific Met Gala this year, because not only are we in a very, let's say, controversial and difficult political, economic, and social climate, but the Met Gala was still running as there is nothing. I want to just give a brief introduction into the Met Gala's topic this year, so we can like start talking about these elaborate outfits. So the Met Gala this year was themed based on the book The Garden of Time. And The Garden of Time is in principle the story of wealthy aristocrats, Count Axel and the Countess, desperately clinging not only onto their wealth and status, but also onto their youth. So they were attempting to escape the inevitable passage of time with the help of time flowers that bloomed in their garden. So as we see, like, this is a very rich to interpret book and a very rich to interpret concept. How would you, if you would have been one of the designers designing for the Met Gala, how do you interpret that concept given?
I feel to begin with, it's obviously got two schools of thought, right? Like, I think they were trying to create the Garden of Time, and like through this book, it just they wanted to probably go back and restore arts and history and culture, but it did kind of spiral outwards. So I think I would have kept it very neutral to begin with. I would not have created any marketing gimmicks or like the whole flair and added drama to the garments. I would have kept something so simple. Like, for example, even with my own collection, I can give you that as the best example is that I made this tube dress out of telephone wires, right? Like the curly one, Argenta and handset poodle. And it was just a tube dress, which was so simple, but was so effective. That's what my teacher told me even, that he's like, oh, it's just something very effective, yet something so simple that you can wear and walk in, and it kind of, spreads the message in the right sense rather than wasting excess fabric and creating more pollution and just like, throwing it in people's faces that, oh, I'm rich, you're poor. I would have gone with something very simple and low-key.
But if you look at it from like an innovation and technology perspective, like what role do you think innovation, especially like innovation in, like as an example, textile innovation, right? And we have 3D printing now. We have like all of these fun tools that you can utilize and technology to utilize. What role does that play in crafting the outfits we do see at the Met Gala?
I mean, I think it plays a huge role, right? For example, if you look at the Loewe group, like they came up with this very interesting corset made out of woodwork. And then I remember even on Greta Lee, there was this garment made with like wires, which were kind of constructed by actual artisans, right? I was thinking originally that they had just shaved it, but then you think about it, that how if you want to integrate it with materials which are already lying in the environment, and you want to use them to extract them to make fashion, I think that it can be a huge and it play a critical role in making garments that have the flair over just like making it out of fabric. Like
It's almost like that they are innovating couture, right? Like with the new technology and innovation. It's so fascinating because for me couture was always like old inherited craftsman style, right? As an example with Chanel, when we were talking about like this one artist, seamstress, who was able to do this one specific embroidery, right? So it's so hard to keep this alive. And with technology and innovation, it can become very difficult to either incorporate that into old techniques because is too time intensive. But then on the other hand, there is such this yearning for nostalgia and this yearning for preserving history. So I think it's a very interesting juxtaposition where we're in the current time of innovation and AI and technology, that we're breaching from the typical couturier who is sitting for like hundreds and 300s of hours in their atelier to just hand embroider something, versus having someone to take away certain embroidery things because they can create like plackets that they can sew on, which is way quicker, but it's completely intricately printed. So it's definitely, in my opinion, innovating the couture and in general, probably redefining what is fashion and couture. What do you think of that?
I think you're right. It's true. Like you cannot deny that the AI and technology is actually progressing and kind of making the process of design much faster. But I don't think it's necessarily making it better.
Yeah.
Can I find that out? I feel like that we have seen garments on the Met Gala, including one of Alia Bhatt wearing some Versace from India, which was so labor intensive, so time consuming. It was done by actual artisans and not AI. And I don't think that you can replace that. So there will always be a special place for the orthodox techniques, for the things that, you know, the beginning of fashion, which is exactly what I want to represent, is that you cannot take hands away from the artisans, like, and you cannot put that into AI, because what we have is experiences, we have empathy, we have compassion, which I don't think robotics necessarily do. So, you know, you cannot take that away from people, their history of their hands onto a garment.
Yeah, I can agree. I
totally right.
Agree. There are probably people out there who won't agree, but yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, and I'm there with you. So considering how technology, like, let's stick with this topic for a little bit longer. Like, considering how technology is changing our lives now, and also considering how the Met Gala has evolved significantly since its inception, can you highlight some pivotal moments that have shaped its history of the Met Gala?
I would love to. Yes. For me, the Met Gala has always been about celebration of fashion and the people in fashion who make it, you know, worth what it is in the world. But I feel like for me, the 2009 models as Muse was the highlight point, where I felt like that was the best Met Gala that ever happened, because it celebrated the designer, the muse, the models, the celebrities, but it was not centered around anything but fashion. And that for me was just like the highlight point. But then we come around 2015 where we see China Through the Looking Glass. And then that is what truly shaped the whole idea of Met Gala and what it actually can represent in the wrong sense, and the kind of conversation it can create in the right sense about the lack of Asian people in the design industry.
Yeah.
And that's something that I don't want to, I mean, I'm not trying to be dismissive about it or like rude about it, but it's just something that I've often noticed myself, including for myself, that I've not seen many Asian people or at least Indian people in the design industry internationally, at least, especially not of nationals who are coming from India and trying to make a name for themselves. So pointing that out, that, you know, you are celebrating their culture, but you're not necessarily allowing them to be a part of your culture, is just a bit of a paradox. In my opinion, it's a bit hypocritical as well.
Yeah, it's very controversial. And what I also find very interesting is, I mean, Anna Wintour is, one of a kind. And no, like fascinating and absolutely amazing at her job for her entirety of her career. And I think if we're thinking about fashion as a broad concept, Anna Wintour is one of the names that will go down in history and will always be mentioned in some way, capacity or another. In a completely different concept, right? Because she's not a designer, but she is so smart and forward looking in understanding how trends are working. So she's so in this bubble of fashion, which is quite fascinating. But it's what I also find fascinating is the curation of guests, like who is invited and who is not. As an example, was it last year or 2 years ago? I was quite frustrated that the Met Gala was pretty much persisting only of TikTok influencers. And
Isn't it even now?
I don't want to invalidate them at all because they have their place and they are becoming there. But we're talking about people who are representing certain designers who are well established, who are able and to leverage a lot of fundraising, which TikTokers can, but the TikTokers are more like relatable to the people who are using that app. And at the time, there were more like Gen Zs, maybe young millennials. So the people who can usually dump money into fundraising are not necessarily that generation. So that's, first of all, one thing. And then on top of it, people who have done remarkable work and in their field of art and artistry, in acting or in singing or in any of the big arts, entertainment arts, were not included. So for me, that is also like a very interesting pivot in seeing who they are inviting to and who they are not, and then who people also deny going. So yeah.
Isn't it very interesting? Isn't it very interesting how we are publicizing and talking about quiet luxury, whereas Met Gala is nothing but loud? And that's exactly where you're right. That you're firstly, not to take anything away from TikTokers. I love you all, and I love even Instagrammers, because I'm the Instagram generation. At some point of time, they were talking about me as well, like this, right? But then people will find their way of making something specialized in terms of fashion and how it speaks to the world, even through TikToks. I will not take that away from them. I just feel it's become a marketing gimmick. You do not need people who have a certain following or a certain kind of like a media outlet for preserving art and history and culture, and not necessarily you need it for getting the right investments, right? The people who know about the Met Gala know what it is. If you know, you know. That's the quiet luxury theme, right? And people who are willing to spend that much money on it should not need TikTokers, influencers from anywhere publicizing it for you. The celebrities are coming there, they already have a certain sense of following, and their stylists and the designers that are coming and participating with them and collaborating with them. And I think that should have been a center point. And the fact, and also what's being honored inside of the museum should have been a talking point.
Yeah.
Not the influencers. Exactly. So I just feel like that was very unnecessary, and it should be a little more catered to and taken into consideration. And I believe that Anna Wintour does have the capability to do that, because she's a trailblazer in fashion, and you cannot take that away from her.
Yeah, that's true. Really quickly for the listeners, can you explain really briefly, in like a sentence, what quiet luxury is?
Yes, quiet luxury is basically when there are no labels or monograms or prints which are kind of speaking to what the brand, what brand you're wearing, what brand you're wearing is. It does not really have it written on top of the t-shirt. So the t-shirt is a plain white t-shirt, but you know that it's made out of a certain fabric and it's this brand. And it's more quieter in terms of who you're wearing. And it's not necessarily loud like Moschino or Louis Vuitton with the monogram, for example.
Yeah.
So the quiet luxury brand would essentially be the row.
Yeah, that's right. It's funny that you mentioned that because I used to work with them. But also,
I did want to mention it because they did not allow their show to be filmed, and that's why I mentioned it as well, because you're talking about TikTok.
That's true. Yeah, the row was this year very selective in the people who were able to see the runway show, which is also almost like a transformation back to where fashion started, right? Before all of it was digitalized and media was able to capture everything. I also want to speak briefly to the fact that quiet luxury is linked to the psychological phenomenon of inconspicuous consumption, as you have spoken to quiet luxury right now, because it's pretty much the phenomenon that's linked to it. So inconspicuous consumption in psychological terms means that you don't project branding, and you are very much like in a very niche bubble where you wear, and people who know what you wear, they know. And anyone who, you don't necessarily have a Chanel branding all over, or, have a bag that has a very tiny logo only, because the brand is quite aiming towards this status of, if you know, you know. So I really loved how you said that, like, you know, and if you don't, you don't. So yeah, now we have spoken about that a lot, and inconspicuous consumption and quiet luxury, but also what impact, because if we're talking about trends and, how consumption methods will change, what impact do you think the gala has on the global fashion trends and public perception of fashion?
A very interesting answer to it. I feel like the entire Met Gala, more than the fashion, was about Ozempic and plastic surgery and redefining the standards of beauty that are, I'm sorry to say, they're not really inspiring any of the young children. They're only making but I feel like they're making the young children more aware of what the consequences can be. But I think it was poetically defined by, it was kind of, poetically shown by Kim Kardashian's cardigan, which was not that perfect, right? That was the essence of what you just asked about, and what the global perception is, that not everything needs to be perfect, not everything needs to be beautiful, and you do not have to wear something with a corset, as Linda Evangelista showed us, or you do not have to be overly done up and pretend to be like overly perfect, like Pamela Anderson showed us by running around the Met Gala and the Met, as a child. You just need to have fun. You just need to actually be yourself. You need to find comfort in living and know that you're there for a different purpose, a purpose higher than yourself, bigger than you. And it's not about, say, your 10 seconds of fame. It's not for your 10 more followers. It's for the beauty and art that fashion represents.
I was about to say the Met Gala is very much also a platform for artistic expression. Speaking of that, can you maybe point out your one or two top looks that you would like to speak to, and what made them so important, and how did they link to the concept that was given, like the topic that was given?
I feel for me, the best look has to be Kendall Jenner for both the after party as well as the Met Gala. I feel like she really truly reawakened fashion. It's also about I get it that the theme was Gardens of Time, right? But the Garden of Time can also stand for a metaphor of how far we have come from the previous timelines. And I love the fact that she chose a fall winter 99 Ricochet by McQueen, which is such a forgotten collection. People have not really ventured into it. And also she's getting a lot of flack for saying that she's the first person who wore it, because she didn't wear it outside of the studios for the first time, right? And I feel like you have to give her credit for it, that she was able to extract that as a model who is a supermodel of her current times. And the fact that she was able to rewrite history by bringing out the correct collections and extracting them for the actual media was something which makes you more aware of fashion, right? Which what tells you the test of time, that the fact that it's also reawakening what was dead, was considered to be dead, and what you don't even know exists.
Yeah,
it revives history, and that's exactly what the Met Gala is about. So for me, she just nailed the look.
Yeah. One look that was very controversial was the hourglass sand hourglass look. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Are we talking about Tyra with Oil from Belmont, the fan hourglass? Yes. I don't know how controversial it was. For me, that was, I think, spectacularly done. It was something which you were showing how traditional craftsmanship can be applied even in the contemporary world and still be relevant to the actual media and still kind of get you the right audience, the right publicity. And it did. She was actually the most researched look on, like one of the most researched looks after, I don't know what's the first one, but then yeah, like she was definitely and also in the sands of time again, she took it as a metaphor as opposed to the literal garden, which I feel was really well done. And even the sculpted top that Olivier himself wore was really chic. I think it was very well done. But then there was El Fanning look, which I want to talk about.
Can you explain to the audience first, because not everyone is watching the video? Can you explain? We are going to blend it in for the people who are looking, but can you explain the El Fanning look, how it looks, and what your frustration with that look was?
So the El Fanning look was somewhat like the Cinderella Disney movie, wherein like the birds are kind of surrounding her and placing fabrics on her, and they kind of froze it in real time with like, I think, a raisin-esque element to it, with these two birds sculpted on top of her shoulders as if they are the ones, dressing her up. And then that drapes into a body and then flows into a skirt at the bottom. And that was very typical. That was an exact copy of the Tama Fuchs and Nitzan Zappler archetype that they had developed for their final collection as a collaborative effort. And it was to do with like the birds holding the skirt at the back of the model. And it was just, it was a direct rip-off. And I just did not appreciate that, because where you actually like took us to a whole new high, you dropped yourself low in a second. So
Well,
was it worth it?
It's just really sad, right? Because if you think about it, you have the chance to dress a very popular actress on one of the biggest fashion events, and you have the chance to be super innovative and think of something new, especially considering the Garden of Time. Like couture is like always be very like traditional, have traditions embodied into the outfits, but then be also creative and have this platform for artistic expression. And then you decide to copycat another designer. It's kind of sad, because people work towards this Met Gala like over a year sometimes even.
I mean, for me, it's also such a rip-off for the stylists, because they are not probably aware of these young designers, and they, lay their faith in a brand like Balmain and Olivier's friend. And oftentimes, Olivier himself might not have been aware of the young designers. They were probably junior designers that researched and ripped it off. And you can't put a point of finger or blame on anybody. But then I feel like the final team needs to research heavily on whether this garment is something similar to another garment. They have to keep that in check, because Balmain is like a global brand, right? And I feel like more than anything, it's just sad that these young designers who worked tirelessly and perhaps without any financial backing, come up with this intellectual property, and it just gets stolen without as little as even any kind of financial benefit coming out of it. Like, I think they could have been paid for their work.
Yeah, or they could have given the chance of dressing right El Fanning instead of Balmain doing it. So
I mean, there you go.
Back into the controversy of like who runs the fashion world and who has a seat at the table, even though the table's not always made for everyone, right? So it's very tough to get there. And it's just very sad if we're looking at it from a designer's and artist's perspective, that you have the chance of pushing the boundary of creativity and you're just not following through with your own innovations in a way. Then they should have just dropped it.
Yeah.
Just dressed just Tyler. They did so well with her. They should have just stuck with her.
Yeah.
You didn't have to it almost takes a little bit away from her look, because the focus then shifts in this controversy on El Fanning. So, yeah.
I mean, this is where I want to say that, artists also have an exhaustive point to their creativity, right? Yes, absolutely. And coming up with 3 collections a year, or even trying to come up with something artistic with every single season. Like earlier, it used to be okay, spring, summer is a pink, so it translates into a red in the autumn. It used to be that simple. And now it's oh my God, if I made something out of metal right now, can I turn it into a car, a truck, a factory, an entire industry of things? It just becomes very far-fetched, and there's too many expectations that are being being put on a designer and a creative head. And this is where I commend Alessandro Michele, because he's the first one to point out in Gucci when he was that I will not make more than 2 collections anymore. This is enough. I'm an artist, but you need to respect the fact that I too have a brain and to have a limitation. And it's something that we need to consider moving forward, that how can we slow down fashion and really turn it quieter, just like the road did. And I respect them for it, because it can be very, it can also like be very disappointing, right? Because say you make something which is so spectacular and people are not even stopping to smell the roses, unintended. And it's just like, okay, let's move forward. Where's the next garden? Where's the daffodil? Where's the sunflower? I mean, it just, you gotta stop, pause, and actually gain a little perspective that sometimes you can only deliver this much. And if you cannot, as you said, stop. Do not take another celebrity on board. I think you can survive. You're earning a lot of money regardless. So you can avoid that one celebrity and save your image and reputation.
Sorry, we had Coco Chanel, my cat, wanted to join in. If people start loving her as much as I do, then I have to install a cat cam.
Yeah.
No, but you're absolutely right. And the discussion is so multifaceted, right? So we could talk today for like hours and hours on end, because if we're thinking about not only the creative aspect of it, but also the sustainable one, like having to produce like 4 collections a year, fine. But, if you start doing 12, 16 every 2 weeks a new collection, it's just also not sustainable, not only economically and environmentally, but especially also for like, besides all of these topics that I've brushed upon all the time, but it also is not sustainable for the artists because they start burning out. They cannot come up with new things all the time in that capacity.
But this is where you need to commend Loewe, because they are collaborating with other artists and they are giving them their due, which is what I respect. The fact that they are even mentioning that this is a collaborative effort. It's not just Jonathan Anderson. So that is why Jonathan Anderson is truly a legend of our time, because he understands the process and the importance of collaborating with other artists. And why not make it like a community, right? Like, why does art need to be different from fashion? We are not competing.
Now that you've spoken to Loewe, can you like give that justice and maybe discuss the 4 looks that were on it and what made them special?
Absolutely. Like, I definitely loved the one with Greta Lee, because I thought that was boned, and it was this corseted dress that she wore made out of lace. And I thought that it was boning that was making it stand away from the body in like this circular shape, but it's actually a metal wire that was soldered, and then a welder was actually working on to create that shape so that it stays with the lace. So that thing was so delicately done, because lace it's such a difficult and complex fabric to get a hold of and put on the body. So I feel like that was a key look. Then there was definitely Jamie Dornan. I think he did a stunning job with the 3-piece suit, which somebody pointed out that's just a 3-piece suit. I'm sorry, zoom into the garment. And I would leave that to the listeners to actually go and research on that look and zoom into the garment, because that's what made it truly special. Then I feel there was Taylor Russell. I loved the wooden corset, which was constructed for a long period of time by this craftsman. And I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name right now. I do apologize. But I know that this was this corseted structure with the drape at the bottom, which was kind of 2 worlds collided in the perfect sense of technology and craftsmanship and a design aesthetic, which was a collaborative effort as well. It was truly sad, though, that she ended up, and this is where, you can drop celebrities if needed, is when you go and you say out loud that I always wanted to dress up like a tree, is what Taylor Russell said on that
Yeah, that's a little bit of a
which I just want to leave. The designer and the artist's faces. Yeah. Like, I think that is why, it goes a long way to say that, by dressing up multiple celebrities, it's not necessarily the right kind of marketing that you're receiving either. And as much as I respect Taylor Russell for what she does and her work in the movie Bones and all, I just feel like that was a very dismissive and very disrespectful comment to have been made on the red carpet, because that's not what she was dressed for. And then last but not least, Jonathan Bailey, our dearest, dressed up in like the most simplest suit with like a simple star as a bow tie, And it just goes a long way to also say that sometimes you can keep it very simple and just follow the theme to the T like a little child and keep the inner child alive and make it come out and just have fun with it. Because fashion is fun, it's not always about that taking it to the next level.
With Jonathan Bailey, I found that look so interesting because it was shocking because it was so bare. Like it was almost like going with the theme by going against it. If you think of the concept, right, like the wanting to preserve youth versus wearing something timeless without aging, right? Because in my opinion,
exactly,
except for the flower, his entire outfit was so timeless and chic and elegant, and it also shows again that minimalism can be projected in such a luxurious way because the details need to sit to the T. So his look was, in my opinion, fantastic because it was so unassuming, completely in contrast to what Adam were wearing.
And also expresses the power of accessorizing in the right sense with what you already own in the closet.
Exactly. And it makes it, again, like a nod to where people are moving towards now to upcycle and recycle and, like save money and all of these kind of things that is necessary. So in that context, and context of today's fashion landscape on, the street, how important is the Met Gala for launching new ideas and discussions around fashion?
Oh my God, very, very important. The amount of audience that you're receiving digitally is just insane. I mean, we can talk about Doja Cat for Guatemala. She became a walking pin doll and an advertisement for rebranding for Guatemala, I see, in a lot of ways. They, in fact, started 3 days prior to the Met Gala, posting different pictures with the creative head. And it was very interesting to see how she did not follow the theme at all, in my opinion. No offense to her, I love her. But I love Guatemala as well separately, but together it was just a marketing gimmick. It was literally advertisement for rebranding, and that's all it was. But imagine the amount of following that both of them got, the amount of attention that the both of them got. I feel like it was something that was achieved perfectly for these two people.
Yeah.
It was a collaboration of just digital marketing. It had nothing to do with the Met Gala, which I think kind of borders on disrespecting the Met Gala and Anna Wintour's efforts of curating this experience. But it just, I feel then you can also say, like, for young designers like Windowzone or Cardi B, I mean, she got the attention of everybody, and that's great for Windowzone. But then I feel that's also kind of sad because it was just like, for a young designer, they have to make it bigger and bigger and bigger, that they do really stand out against somebody like a Galliano.
Yeah.
You cannot compete with that. So I feel like that is where we also need to understand that it's more about the technique. It's more about what you want to represent as a designer, as opposed to making it loud and not necessarily proud.
How much do you think will this Met Gala change people's perception of purchasing? Or do you think that there is even, will we see a lot of flowers now next season?
I don't think so. I think that the story stands true thanks to Meryl Streep and Dallas Pratt. Our flowers for spring are not groundbreaking, and it was shocking that Anna Wintour did not follow that.
Yeah.
But this is where it's so interesting that I feel like, not to take anything away from Anna Wintour, because I guess she was dressed beautifully by Loewe again. But it was just a bit of an industry favorites thing for me. But moving on to the actual topic of discussion is that you can understand something that can be wearable, and it still is beautiful and very well constructed. So I respect the fact that she herself actually is not donning herself in these extensive outfits which just do not make any sense. I mean, You're just bringing it down to fashion and style. It's not about, you're not trying to become the next Mount Everest. You are just going to attend a gala and have fun and just respect art and beauty and culture.
I feel like Anna Wintour is one of those prime examples in the fashion world of timeless fashion and embodying your own style. For me, she is so timeless due to her wearing what makes her her. And it's so interesting because if you look at looks from her from like 2007, you would not be able to place it into 2007. You could place it into now because she's always so timeless Which also is kind of funny considering, again, with the context of the concept of that garden of time, timelessness, not wanting to age, want to preserve wealth. It was such an interesting and intriguing concept and very controversial considering in the economic climate we're in at the moment.
No, I just feel like I don't necessarily feel like it seems like it was very personal to her in that respect, but you're right on that, where you can recognize her from a bob and bang, that's Hannah Wintour. And it's like, how you can be that iconic and, still stay relevant in the current time and not, and sustain yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just commendable that she's been able to do that. And I wish I can.
I agree. I wish too. So before we are now going towards the closing tradition, I would like to give you the chance of just like give the audience a bit more insights of a few key pieces that you think were very, very important as well on the Met Gala. Like the one person that comes to my mind as an example who showed up twice on the carpet, Zendaya. Do you have any thoughts about her?
I feel Zendaya's outfits were brilliantly, of course, styled by Laura Roach, but for me, she kind of lacked the same level of spectacle that she was able to create during the June events when she extracted the Mugler robotic outfit that she did. And it kind of just became very, no offense, but she was the most Hunger Games of the lot. Even though she was wearing Galliano and Givenchy Couture, it was very on the nose with the Garden of Time. It was very, I think there needed to be a certain balance, and she was quite maximalist in this way, and I just don't see her as that person. So you also have to respect that it's a personal style of a person. I get it that Zendaya is the supermodel of everyone's dream, and she could pull anything off, but that does not mean that she needs to, be turned into like a walking fancy dress competition. It just did not make sense to me this time.
Yeah, fair enough.
But that's just me. I love the dresses that she wore, but not for the events, not for the gala. I think it was very gimmicky.
What do you think of like another minimalist designer or the minimalist brand who actually turned a bit more maximalist this time, Thom Browne? What do you think of Gigi's outfit?
I think I love that outfit. I love the fact that their idea of Garden of Time was it had a bit of a dig on the piling clothes as a skirt. So basically she had the archetypical disruption, which I absolutely loved. Even by Zach Posen for Dagrine, he actually ended up making it out of like jeans, right? Multiple jeans that were discarded in factories. I think it's just such an interesting thing. So, but circling back to Thom Browne, I feel it was so interesting because they kept their own vision of tailoring alive, but also took a little bit of a commentary on society of what fashion's implications are on the environment by juxtaposing it with multiple tailored jackets that transformed into a skirt, but the level of artistry and mastery going into boning, canvassing, padding, how time-consuming canvassing is and tailoring is by adding shoulder pads to each and every jacket that was layered and juxtaposed, and it was not just jackets that had been sewn on pads. They were actually done in a very eccentric, very thought-provoking manner. Somebody had really taken into consideration how those jackets are going to be laid on her skirt. I think that is the beauty of Thom Browne, and that's why he's the CMTA chairman.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I loved her look. It was so intriguing, and to be fair, I have a soft spot for Thom Browne and its tailoring expertise because it's kind of where my origins are. So, yeah. Thank you for enlightening us with those.
If I may also add to something, it's also the idea of presenting it so whimsically and with a narrative behind it. That's what fashion used to be about, not just like hang grapes on the waist and just send her on the runway. It just does not make sense. I mean, for me, this is what's more sensible. I kind of using your craftsmanship and the archetypes that are presented that are present in front of you, what people can associate with, and putting it out there so that it actually like does provoke some idea or thought behind it.
Yeah, I hear you. I could not agree more. Yeah, we do have a closing tradition in this podcast that every episode we challenge our listeners to facilitate growth, intentionality, and awareness with our hashtag Style My Mind Challenge. What challenge would you like to give our listeners or viewers for them to intentionally explore their relationship with fashion?
I feel like the art of accessorizing is lost on us. I feel we can all learn something from Jonathan Bailey and circle back to taking something which is timeless and basic for us and accessorize it into something more beautiful and spectacular so that it can be Met Gala worthy and still stay relevant, still be classy and chic. So how about we take something which is basic for us, say like a white t-shirt and a pair of trousers, but how can we accessorize it? Say we wear some kind of like shoulder pads that are separately added onto the t-shirt, or we just add it with multiple belts and whatnot. So like, how can we make it more couture worthy?
I love that. So, listeners, you have heard the challenge for this week. Make sure that you dive into the probably most of the people forgotten box somewhere in the corner of the apartment and find whatever you have that you feel like maybe might be too much or too crazy to wear. Try it out to combine it in Jonathan Bailey's style. And if you feel comfortable and you feel happy and good with it, feel free to snap a photo, post it on social media, and don't forget to link to hashtag Style My Mind Challenge so that we can all see what you beautifully come up with. And to be fair, talking about couture, why don't you try to make your own? So, Sid, thank you so much for these fascinating insights. It's been incredible.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well,
thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored.
Oh, you're so sweet. And you are here for a reason, and it's important that people know, who you are. So can you maybe give us some input where they can find you or get in touch with you in case they want to seek for a collaboration or just a chat or anything?
I mean, you can always text me on Instagram, slide into my DMs. My Instagram handle is The Power Cosmic. And over there, you can find my work link in the bio, as well as my email in my work page. And you can reach out to me in any way possible, and we can have a personal discussion. I can mentor you through any design aspirations you may have. And of course, I can help you style My Mind Challenge if you need some more guidance on it. But yes, I think everybody's got that in the bag. And I would just like to point out that it's absolutely, I'm so grateful to be a part of this podcast and also to be sitting in front of you, because you really downplay yourself and you don't really tell just how accomplished you are as a person, Jen. And I am grateful to be your friend and your new podcast a member on the panel. It's deeply an honor.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your kind words. Whew, you brought me like a bit emotional right now. Thank you. So it's been incredible to dive into the spectacles of your work and in general the fashion designer's work, and also into the spectacle that is the Met Gala. For our listeners, remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Join us next time as we explore the controversies considering our global climate with another designer that we're bringing on. And we will put all of the information around Sid into our info box so you can reach out there, so you don't have to look up necessarily far. And just join us next time when we are hitting the next section of the Met Gala. And until then, keep styling your mind.